or drop it in the chat box. Really, anyone works. All right. So while we wait, okay, Ikechukwu, yes, please ask a question.
Okay. Hello, Roger.
Hi.
Yeah. So Ikechukwu, um so my question is around domain knowledge. So I wanted to know how important is like having some form of domain knowledge to be your success as a PM. Like sometimes I've read some arguments about, product managers, successful product managers usually have, some of them have some, knowledge in another field, let's say engineering or data, or maybe a more STEM field like maybe health or something like that. So when they're working on some sort of product in that area, they have more technical capacity or something like that. So
Are
is
you,
this something you always consider?
are you talking about the skill sets, having like a deep skill set in something other than product management? Or are you talking about having a deep set of experience in the field that you're solving the problem for?
I yeah, I feel it's more about having like skill set in the field you're building a product on. Like, is
Yeah,
that
so
something?
definitely helps to understand. The deeper you understand the environment and the problem space you're solving for, the better you're going to understand the customer's needs, the more intuitive decisions you're going to make that are right, and the more effective you're going to be at a product manager. You're going to make better decisions. Having said that, though, spending 3 months in some fields or 6 months in 75% of fields will probably give you enough understanding of that. By actively going and learning and speaking to customers, you can get, like, if you're in education, you've never been in education before, if you spend 6 months actively trying to upskill yourself on the state of the environment in education, you're probably, at the end of the 6 months, you're probably going to know more than most people working in education. Or at least on par, you'll be able to pick up the nuances well enough to be able to compromise for that. If you're trying to get into like machine learning, or if you're trying to build a dev tool, it's really hard to learn what the developer is actually going through if you haven't been a developer yourself. If you haven't actually had to deploy code and use dev tools and work out what's strong or not, it's really difficult for you to academically learn that thing. So I think in certain fields, and that's kind of where you look at the disciplines within product management that are coming out. One of them is a technical PM, but that's for the types of like Web3 or AI or like IoT. There's just a lot of very different technologies, and it's the type of stuff that you're probably not going to just absorb within 4 or 6 months or 3 to 6 months of just trying to study it and immerse yourself in it. But for most consumer, most B2B things, like for the other 75% or 80% of products, you could probably get that domain knowledge quite successfully. So I think there are certainly cases when you need a deep understanding of a domain in order to properly solve the problems for it. But simultaneously, I think that's the minority of problems. Most other things you can learn your way into it. But knowing that you need to have deep understanding of the context and the environment that you're solving for is definitely important.
All right. Thank you very much, Roger.
Cool. So I'll take my first question. Let's see how many I get tonight.
Thank you so much, Ikechukwu, for that question. Mustafa.
Yeah, so sorry, I was actually speaking on off mute, right? So it's more of like, my question is basically on, like somebody mentioned regarding PM are actually not doing anything, right? So because the PM world is full of much of information, your customer need, business need, like you're being bombarded with information, right? Inside every day. So you get overwhelmed that you don't even have anybody to speak with, right? Because you can't even speak with the head of department, VP. You can't even talk to anybody, right? Because nobody's going to listen to you, right? So how do you think someone can survive in that setting, right? How do you think PM can manage those information, right? And because most times you have to think through yourself only and figure out things out. but just having a little conversation with somebody, right, can help ignite some ideas and it's actually solve the problem you want to really solve, right? So you don't have to spend hours of computer time using your brain to think through. You can just follow a shortcut, speak to somebody, and all of that. Yeah. So how do you think we can? How to that like give me like an insight, like so how can someone manage such situation? Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, that's a tough one. Ideally, you should try and build rapport or a relationship with someone in your organization where you can have those conversations with. It could be somebody, like if there are other PMs in your organization, those are great people to do a lunch once a week where you unpack something you're grappling with and they unpack something you're grappling with to do that. Or even in software development, they have this term called Rubberducking, which is you just explain the problem you're solving to somebody, even if they don't if they have no idea what you're doing. By you explaining it, you need to articulate it and work at, and often you can solve the problem you were stuck on just by verbalizing it and trying to explain the problem to somebody else, and you work it out for yourself. So that's like, even if you're chatting to somebody in data science, or if you're chatting to somebody in customer service, or if you have a close relationship with someone, you go up to them and say like, can I just unpack my problem to you? I just need a bit of space for you to hold, for me to do that, and have that conversation. So if you can get that inside the organization, they're probably going to have a lot more context on what you're talking on, and will probably be able to add a lot more value than just being there to be spoken at, which is normally not how those things work out, but it'll pan out. The other option that you can look at is, here is a community of people. I'm pretty sure there are other people in the community that are also looking for a space to be able to share and bounce ideas off people. And so find a study group or create a community of peers. Maybe put out a call in one of the Slack channels saying, anybody else working in fintech and wants to run a session where we can just brain dump once a week to kind of soundboard and sense check ideas. You could probably build a community of, you only need like 2 to 4 people in a small group that once a week or once every 2 weeks, you have an hour lunch and you jump on a call, and each of you takes 10 or 15 minutes to unpack a problem that you're grappling with, or just to present a roadmap that you're working on and get other people's opinions on like, what might you do differently? How could you improve it? Get them to kind of pitch it to them first and get their like feedback, or get them to ask the hard questions, so that when you present it to your internal team, it looks a lot better. There's definitely value in creating that community of peers that can help hold you to account as well. I would say the first prize is to try and create a support group within your organization. If you can't do that, even somebody to rubber duck with on smaller things. But beyond that, if you need more support, reach out into this community and build a support group through that. Would probably be the most valuable. Stefan, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it actually answers it a lot, bro. So thanks so much, right? So I'll start effecting the second one. So I'll try doing the first one, right? Try to speak to probably somebody in the operation that doesn't even know what my product is all about. Just have a conversation with the person, like, this is what I'm trying to build, this is what it is, this is what it is. So what do you think, and all of that, yeah. So I think I'll start implementing that, yeah. Thanks so much for the answer.
Yeah. Another way is to look up at like a mentor and find someone who can mentor you, who once a week or so often you can take your problem to, or you can take what you're working on once every 2 weeks, and then present it to them and get their feedback. That could be a senior person in your organization. If there's a CPO or a CTO or a manager that you resonate with, you can ask for some space where they can help create space to help you grow and become better. Or find somebody in this community with a bit more experience, or even the same experience as you, and you can mentor each other, because often just being out of the context, you can see what's glaringly obvious.
Thank you very much for that. Thanks so much.
Cool.
Yeah,
Hi, everybody.
All right. So, okay, keep going.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's a bunch of people who've just joined. Hi, you can raise your hand, ask a question, or pop something in the chat.
Yes, like Zilla just did. Yes, Zilla, do you want to ask your question? I feel like this is personal. Do you want to just raise your hand and just ask it right off the bat, or should I just say it out?
Hi, David. If you want me
Uh,
to say it, I can say it. Hi, Roger. Good
Hi.
evening, everyone. Yeah, so I mean, it's the age-old story, PM versus EM, like that same battle. So, how do you manage a situation whereby the EM, obviously he's more technical with the software team, so most times he just whenever they have like the developers have questions, of course they reach out to the PM, but like there's some certain decisions that maybe they just assume that, oh, it's just a small thing, but it's actually a big thing when you look at it as a product manager. And then the EM just decides to go ahead with it. And then during stand up, when they're showing what they've done, you've seen, oh, they've implemented it. And it's like, no, this is not correct. You have to go back. Like, how do you manage that situation?
Um, yeah, the best way is to build an ally of the EM. So for you to kind of well, let me backtrack. The goal of a product manager is not to make all the decisions. The goal of a product manager is to make sure that the right decisions get made. And there's a subtlety there that gets lost on a number of people. I was coaching a startup team just last week on exactly that, where the product manager felt like he had to, like he was making all the decisions of what everybody's working on and what gets built. And it's actually not true. Like the people who are engaged in their case, they had competitions and they had like various different parts of the business. The people running those parts are actually better suited to decide what solutions need and how they get built. It's your job just to coordinate them and make sure that the decisions are getting made and that they're running through a robust process. And if you can incorporate the rest of your team in that process, that's even better. It makes everybody more product centric. It makes your job more valuable, not less valuable, because you're the one creating what exponential value through everybody else. Not, oh, they're not doing what I do, why do we need me? It's like, well, because as soon as I leave, it's all going to fall apart because you're the one holding it together. It's like the first thing is to try and build an allyship with those engineering managers, but also to help them understand the decision-making process. Like, how do you think about it? Or what are the types of things that will have bigger repercussions in the product that they can't just make quick calls on? Like, what is the category of tasks? Or, hey, like, give him 4 or 5 questions to ask every time he wants to make a call. Run through those questions, say, is there a regulatory risk? And he's like, shit, I don't know. It's like, okay, well, that's a question you should definitely escalate back to me. Otherwise, if you can answer all of these, feel free to just answer them. Like, the decision's still getting made. What you can do is have a look at what's going into the sprint instead of what's out of the sprint. And you might be able to see, and you might be able to catch the things before they get in, like, hold on, I didn't make a call on this one. And then you can unpack that a bit further and hopefully catch it earlier. But it very rarely helps to fight that kind of situation and to say, no, you can't do that. I have to make all the decisions. People just generally find ways around you then. And the second thing is to not make that person wrong. Like, you can correct them or you can create better ways of making decisions. But you're only going to make an enemy if you can't do that, you can't make the decision, you made a poor decision, and now it's a screw up and we've wasted all this time. Like, as soon as you go down that route, like, you're like going to destroy that ally. Whereas if you go to them and say, look, these types of decisions, this is what we need to make, and you help give them a framework, you help them make the decision as you would make, then the decisions you need to get made will get done without you. And that's like the best possible way to level up your career and your organization, is get to pull out of the muck, is to create a framework on how people make decisions. So I don't have an exact answer for you. It's also going to depend on the personality and your relationship with the EMs. And like, that's just kind of why PM is hard. But I wouldn't try and, like, if possible, I would try and encourage it, not discourage it, and rather find ways to support it and build an ally instead of trying to command and control and stop them from doing it at all. Because people want ownership. They want to feel like they can make contributions to the organization. They all want to feel like they want to contribute. So by including them in that, you can make them contribute, but still make better decisions. By trying to exclude them, they're going to make those decisions without you anyway. Then it's all going to be more of a stuff.
Thank you. That was really helpful.
Kumbaya.
Yeah, thank you so much, Roger. That helped me too. Like, I think it's taking me a while to figure out that the product manager is not supposed to have all the answers in the product team. That sort of used to give me pressure when I was working as far. I need to know everything. I need to manage everything, and it's just not what it is.
Yeah, you just need to make sure that good decisions are getting made and that decisions are getting made. But you don't need to be the one making all of them.
Indeed. All right. So we have another question from Balogun Daniel. So yeah, Daniel, you can ask this question by yourself if you want.
Yeah, Daniel, I'm definitely going to need a bit more clarity. So I want to ask you a couple of follow-on questions.
Looks like. All right, great. Hi, Dan.
Yes, I was about asking. Good evening or good day. So I was about asking, like, as a PM, what do you do if you're stuck? Like, you're working, you have a work going as a product manager and you're trying to build a product, but I mean, all of a sudden you just get stuck. I mean, you don't even understand what else to do and what you have to do. So, what do you advise one to do?
So, are you stuck on a single product that you're still working on that product, or you're stuck between moving from one product to another product?
No, you're still working on it.
Okay. But so if you were to ask, how could this product create more value? Would answering that question help get you unstuck?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
If you ask, how could this product create more value, would that help you get unstuck?
I wasn't, maybe not really. I was just trying to say maybe getting stuck in the sense that you don't even know what to do next, or maybe you don't know what next to move to.
Sure. Define what value looks like. So everything. So a product and product strategy or product roadmap should never be worked in isolation. The product strategy is just a personification or a lens of your business strategy. So what is the business strategy that you're trying to achieve? Like, what does success look like for the business? Like every business, I'll find a thread, where is it? It's here somewhere. But every business has a stack. So Ravi, what did he say? Where is this? Anyway, I will find the link. Ravi Muller or something. Sorry, hold on. Product strategy. There we go. The product strategy stack. Ravi Mehta. I'll drop the link in the chat now. But basically, he has a really awesome little framework of looking through. Oh, I can't copy this. Okay, something's not working. I can't copy a link in my browser for some reason. That's very strange. If someone can just Google Ravi Mehta product strategy stack and drop the article, the first Google result in the chat, that'll help. But basically, what you need to do is you need to work out, like, what is your company vision and mission? What is the company strategy, which is what is the plan that we deliver? The vision and mission is where we want to get to, what we want to be, how we want to be defined. The strategy is the steps that you're going to take, the unique angle that you have that you're going to leverage. Like, how are you going to win in the market when nobody else? Like, how are you going to beat the competitors in the market? How are you going to stand out? And like, so that's your company strategy. Your product strategy are the things that you need to build in order to deliver on that company strategy. You can't just work out a product strategy of, oh, what should we do next, if you're not clear around, like, what is the thanks, I see the links are dropped in there. But what is the a company strategy? So that's the first place to go to, is what are we trying to achieve as a company, and what does success look like? And so when you think about a particular product, and that might be a product strategy for all the different products, and each product will feed into that product strategy at a certain layer. And that's why the question for me of how do I generate more value from my product? And that will be slightly different. The answer to that question will be slightly different for every product. Is it to bring in more revenue? Is it to increase retention? Is it to reach more users, like in a freemium model? Like there are many different levers that you can pull to try and improve a product or make more of the product. You're going to optimize those differently depending on what the strategy is that you're trying to fulfill. So if you're trying to build the biggest product, it's going to be very different if you're trying to build the best product. If you're trying to build an integrator or something that creates viral loops, like then you're going to focus on engagement, activation, reach, like what are the loops, what are the referral networks, what is the gamification elements and experiments that we can run in our product in order to drive more of that outcome. But if you're in a B2B enterprise payments product, like gamification and viral loops and driving more engagement ain't gonna help. There you want to look at core value delivery like how do we get more retention? How do we create more stickiness that once the corporate has started using us, they'll never want to leave? Let's go and interview the people around our product, say, what problems do you have that is adjacent to the problems our product solves for you? And how do we expand the product into the niche? You're probably not going to have this loop that'll bring in a ton more users. But in a B2B model, often cross-selling in the organization or cross-selling within the same group to a different set of problems in the same customers are great ways of building your product because you've already got the contracts, it's just adding a line item or increasing the budget, and now you can roll it out to a whole nother team, which is effectively a whole nother company if you're looking at SMEs or entire customer base. So think about like, what is value? Like, how can I make this product more valuable? What metric would change for me to see, yes, this is more valuable? Is it increased revenue per user? Is it like upselling to other products? Is it building out adjacent problems? We're solving this problem really well. How do we build others? Is it building better loops to create more engagement and more retention? Is it that we getting stuck in activation, and how do we convert users through the funnel faster, looking at getting them through the activation steps of how do we actually onboard them? How can we streamline that? We run some A/B tests to like run some experiments to see how we can improve it. Like all of those are potential things that you can do, but they fundamentally stem from how are we defining what value looks like for this product and how this product adds value to the larger organization. And only once you define that can you actually start thinking about ideas around how what might you be able to try or expand or deliver within the realm that you have control over of this product in order to generate exponential value to the organization. Daniel, does that help you get unstuck?
Yeah, thanks for the explanation.
Cool. What's your gut feel on how you would get unstuck? Like very high level, like how would you tackle it?
Sorry, what did you say?
Knowing what I've just said, how do you think, what is your gut feel might be an area on how you could get unstuck? Like if you were to go to the test tomorrow, what experiments would you run? Where would you start?
Yeah, I think for me, I just have to take my mind to how I can create value for the customers. And at the same time, also create value, which for the business or for the company I'm also working for. I think that would help. That should help me. Yeah.
Product strategy lives at the intersection of Gibson Biddle. Slight tweak on Gibson Biddle's definition of what product management is or product, the discipline, if you will. It's delivering customer value. Solving customers' problems while creating business value while understanding technical constraints. And technical constraints are people, operations, technology, a whole bunch of stuff. And so you're kind of balancing at the intersection of those three things. So either how do we remove technical constraints? How do we streamline the product? How do we make it better? How do we deliver more value to customers? Or how do we deliver more value to the business? And that could be in revenue. It could be in a USP. It could be a unique positioning. It could be a whole bunch of different ways in what you do that. But you're really trying to, like all of those three things are the trifecta of what product is. It lives at the intersection of customer value, business value, and technical constraints. Cool.
Thanks.
Great. So thank you so much for that question, Daniel. The next question is from Vero. This is a very interesting question. It's basically asking, is it advisable to add side gigs / projects to your CV / portfolio? If yes, how?
Cool. So in general, absolutely yes. the caveat to that is, depending on how onerous those are, if you're working a full-time gig and your side project is another, at least a part-time gig, your new employer is going to see that and go, hold on, you were moonlighting and you weren't working properly at this company. You're probably going to do that for me, and I'm not going to get my value out of you. So that's like the detraction from it. So there is a case of when I would advise to not do that, when it's like, hold on, there's no possible way you did all of this unless you were not actually delivering properly on your full-time job and you were actually doing a whole bunch of stuff on the side. And you kept building all that other stuff on the side, and your employer, you were drawing a full salary even though you were only working half the time. Like, that would be a negative implication of it. But in general, I look favorably on people who've done side projects who are not just delivering the core. I mean, if you've done writing, or if you've done a couple of case studies in your spare time, or if you're like, I wanted to upskill on customer interviews, so I volunteered for this NPO or volunteered for a friend's startup, and we did a whole bunch of custom interviews, and this was a research and a project that I put together on helping them define their product priorities and roadmap and what their value proposition looks like, because I wanted to upskill on that. Like, those are really great reasons to put additional projects on your CV, right? Like, I would love that. Like, it means that you really love, or you're really interested in product management, and you're actively wanting to upskill, and you're not just kind of rocking up at work every day doing what you need to do and going home. So it's like, it can be very positive in general, but there is definitely a fringe case of, especially now when people are like doing 2 jobs and all that sort of stuff, and it's like if I pick that up in a CV, I won't even interview the candidate. I'm like, I'm not even bothering with that. There's so many candidates, I'm not even going to stuff around with them who might not even be delivering full time for me, and they want to go try to be moonlighting or running 2 jobs simultaneously and just show up to meetings. Like, I got no time for that. So there is definitely a limit of where it is, specifically in fully remote environments. But in general, it's good.
That's good. Jerome, does that clear your curiosity? Great. So thank you so much, Jerome. Guys, if you have any more questions, please raise up your hand, type in the chat box. You can actually see it out by yourself by just raising up your hand, or anyone that works for you. So I have a question, Roger. My question is this: when you have a product that has multiple use cases where a creative can use your product, a small business can use your product, an agency can use your product, and there's just they tweak the features themselves to suit their needs. They develop use cases basically. How do you, and you want to like go deeper in this market, you want to segment these different markets and like go deeper. How do you segment or package your product in such a way that it now serves each of these guys? And by that I mean, how do you like build out verticals? Basically, you now want to build standalone products for this segment, for that segment. Still the same infrastructure, but different packaging. How do you go about something like that?
I'm trying to think of a company that does this well. I almost think Monday.com, I think it was, or Asana, one of the like project management tools does this quite well, of like, who are you? What is your job? What is your outcome? And then the default dashboard you logged into was radically different depending on what you were trying to do. And basically it was the same set of features, just laid out and like templated differently. So that was the one thing. So just try and find a company that does that. There are a couple of examples out there. I can't think of any off the top of my head now. But basically what you're looking at doing is you're looking at breaking out customer segments. I generally prefer to map customer segments around the jobs to be done. So what is the outcome that they are trying to deliver, and group a customer segment by everybody who wants to deliver that. I think there was a great the example of this is like Ozzy Osbourne and Prince, or now King Charles in London. They both live in the same area. They both have a dog. They're both about the same age, but they are fundamentally different people with fundamentally different needs and wants. And so often like categorizing people by like a small business or a creative, like they might be the same thing if they're both just trying to get their invoicing, taxes, and accounting done. If you're hey, the creative wants to manage projects, and if they have a different job that they're trying to use your product for, that I would say is a different customer segment. So looking at how do you define your segmentation based around the needs that they're wanting to do, and then tailoring your product for that, and allowing through the onboarding, trying to extract the information or the pathing that would make the most sense to give them a different template. Or like what Miro does, you can load up templates and then do a search, and you can find a Kanban board, or you can find a this map or a that map or a journey map or like a service design, or this whole bunch of templates to kind of like, oh, if you're this type of person, these are the templates you might like. And you can search the templates by like product, and then it shows you a whole bunch of product templates that you might want to use. And so depending on the type of product, you can either do it through like taking them a path through onboarding and giving them a dashboard or a different layout, or you can give them sort of different views. Like I know Asana has like a list view and a Kanban view and a timeline view and a thing, or like a ClickUp, and a bunch of the others also has that sort of thing. So even just switching, showing the same information in different views, and allowing users to kind of pick the view that resonates with their use case, is another way of just kind of, if it's all the same information underlying. So I think there's a couple of different strategies there. Like I said, either through onboarding, through searchable templates, or through the same data, just with different views, would be different ways of you catering to the needs of how a certain customer segment is wanting to use the product. But I would group them by how they're wanting to use it, not by any other characteristic of how old they are, or how big they are, or like what they do. Yeah, if that makes sense. What they are. I characterize them by what they do, not by what they are. If that makes sense.
Really makes sense. Thanks a lot, Roger. I'll check out all these examples you mentioned. Yeah,
the job to be done framework is really, really solid. Like I think it's massively underrated in how we segment customers.
Yes. Funny enough, I've been familiarizing myself with that framework throughout the year. And I think this raises another question on my end. So the jobs to be done framework. A lot of people call it a mental model, a lot of people call it a framework. But in terms of its application, how do you see it in your own experience?
Yeah, so the one thing I think that the jobs to be done framework misses is, well, the one thing that I found very useful, and I normally do this when I'm doing a value proposition canvas, specifically the customer segment profile, because the right-hand side is the list of jobs to be done, and then you unpack pains and gains. But the thing that often, like, if I say, like, what are the jobs to be done of a small business owner, you're going to start rattling off a whole bunch of, oh, he needs to pay staff, and he needs to do this, and he needs to do that. Like, there's a whole bunch of activities that they do. But what I found far more useful is to ground that in what is the overarching want of a small business owner? Like, what are they actually trying to achieve? And then what the jobs are, the steps or the things that they do in order to achieve that want. And so by categorizing jobs in that sense, it helps you articulate which jobs are actually relevant and which ones are not. Like, they don't worry about paying staff, they just want to deliver a good service. And part of that means paying staff. But the job is actually delivering a good service that matters there, like deliver the service. So get the stock, deliver the service, collect money, and get customer reviews or whatever. Like, that's what they need in order to have a successful business, or to make more money. So defining that and granting the jobs to be basing the jobs to be done around a particular want of this customer segment, and that's the want that you're solving, not just any old want. It's like, what is the want that you can help them solve, and then what are the jobs they do in order to do that. One example for jobs to be done is, like, often people get stuck into like the details of a specific use case, and the one catch with jobs is that it needs to be a little more high level than that. So, like, if you want to buy a TV, the jobs to be done is to like search or browse or search, then buy the TV, then get it back to your house, and then get it installed. Like, those are kind of the 4 high-level jobs. Also browse, compare, buy, deliver, and install. And those are high enough level that I didn't say you search the internet, because that's how you might browse, but you might also go into a shop. So, like, each of those steps, browse, could be browsing shops, like going into shop to shop, looking at different prices, comparing prices, and writing them in a book. Or it could be going online, opening 12 or 124 browser tabs with different TVs, checking all the prices and things. So the jobs needs to be at a level high enough that the details, it doesn't unpack the details, but it unpacks the action that they're actually doing when they do those details. And so that you can look at how do my different customers do it today? How do the tech-savvy customers do it? How do like different nuances of how different people get the same jobs done in different ways? I'm not sure if I'm making sense.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense, Roger. It's really helpful. Sort of streamlines what you're looking for. Thanks a lot. So yes, we actually have another question in the chat box from Ikechukwu. First one. So it's asking, as an entry level or junior PM, should we be thinking of specializing? If yes, how soon should we specialize?
Yeah, so I actually have a slightly, sorry, before I go there, here is a very old, i.e. like 8-year-old video of me talking about jobs to be done. And a friend of mine, David, for a workshop that we ran, if you want to watch a YouTube video on jobs to be done. But so to ask about like how early should you specialize, I actually think the best thing a junior product manager can do is to specialize. But let me qualify that. It's not to specialize in a domain. It's to specialize in an area of product management. So part of the problem, and David, this is your question right in the beginning, is like part of the problem is to actually be able to deliver value as a PM, you need like 3 to 5 years experience, because product management is a relatively strategic role that is so broad and so encompassing that you need a certain amount of experience and you need a certain amount of strategic thinking to be able to actually deliver well at it. But as a junior PM, obviously it's hard to get that. But one of the best ways to get that is say product management is so broad, all the way from customer development and research to rapid prototyping to like UX, UI, like brand design, going into product road mapping or like strategies or like creating PRDs and writing scoping and speccing and creating reports to managing dev teams and backlog grooming and user stories, and like there's so many, to like going into like actually running scrums and scrum processes and retros and those sort of things. There's like this massive like breadth of what, and I'm having like analytics and like data and all that sort of stuff. Like a good PM should be able to do a little bit of all of those things. But as a junior, you're obviously not going to be able to start by doing all of those. So one of the best ways to do it is to pick something along that spectrum that you're already good at. And so, I mean, this is actually, I'm writing an article like how to get into product management from customer support or from engineering or from whatever. And the short answer, I mean, the whole article is basically like, out of that spectrum, find the area that you have the most overlap of skills with currently. So if you're good at design, lean into the UI, UX, customer research, and then you start expanding out across the product spectrum from that base that you can get a solid footing on. So I wouldn't say specialize in your early career in like blockchain or thing, unless if you're deeply interested in that and you want to build a career as a blockchain product manager, there is a whole world for you of specialization if you want to specialize in order to stay ahead. Like a product manager even a junior product manager in EdTech is like this weird little nuance that is quite difficult to understand if you haven't actually worked for a fair bit in EdTech. So starting to get your reps in EdTech will definitely help do that. So you can specialize like that, but another way to specialize is to actually just try and get really good at one part of what product management actually entails. And if you can get really good at that, people will hire you because they need a junior to help with customer interviews and customer development, or they need a junior to write better documentation and collect data better. Because those and if you like, so the best way to stand out if you're a junior when you're applying for roles is not to have like a generic CV that kind of, you're a bit of a jack of all trades, but you're not really specialist in anything. If you can be a bit lopsided as a junior and say, I'm actually really good at this, I'm trying to learn this other stuff and I'd like exposure to that, but I can deliver on this right now for you. A company that needs that is going to hire you on the spot and then let you grow. And so that's typically my recommendation for a more junior PM on how to actually stand out in interviews and get a job easier. Sure, that's the article. I don't know if that answered your question. Cool.
All right. Great. Thank you for the link, Roger. Just bookmarking all this. So we have another question.
I hate
Hi,
watching videos of me talking. My voice. It's like, yeah, people can't do it. Anyway, sorry.
So yeah, David, do you want to come up and ask this question? This is heavy.
Oh, okay. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Louder.
All right. So, like I said in the chat box, I just recently stumbled on the product space like 2 months ago. So I've taken like 2 or 3 courses, and I really can't wait to get practical knowledge, which is like getting an internship or something like that. But I really don't know how to bridge the gap between learning and learning and learning and actually getting practical knowledge and all these things. So how can
There
I
was
bridge
one.
the gap?
Somebody answered this question a little while ago in the channel, and it was spot on. So I'm going to try and find the link for you. But it's like the best advice that I've heard came from this other person. I wish I could remember who it was. But what they said is like, the best thing, like you need to do some courses to basically understand the terms and get the grounding and understand the theory. But to really get a job and to stand out, you need real case studies and real work. And so one way to do that is to go, well, like pick a company that, like pick Paystack or pick LinkedIn or pick a company that you know relatively well and start applying the tools to it. Look at like try and reverse engineer what is their stakeholder map, what are the value propositions for all those different stakeholders, what is their product strategy, like what language do they use on their website that would infer how they're trying to tackle the different stakeholders, like how do they pitch LinkedIn recruiting and LinkedIn jobs differently. So do a business model canvas for one of these things to start working out like how would they think about what they do, or pick a feature of like, I wish TikTok had this feature, and then do a little PRD, like a full scoping on the motivation of why, what data would I look for in order to make a decision, like, and actually run through to do a bit of a case study or a work on a fictitious product, or fictitious feature for a product that you know well as a way to build out a portfolio. But that's not the advice this person gave. What they said is even better, is to pick a company that you think you want to work for and do the work on that company and go to do competitor analysis, do feature analysis of them versus all their competitors. Try and work out what is their strategy of how they differentiate in the market from anybody else. What is a feature that would help them, that they could add to their product that would help them do that? What kind of data do you need to do that? Put together that little case study and then send it to the company and say, hey, I'm a product intern. I'd love to work at your company. Here's a bunch of work that I've done. Even if you don't get the job, you still got the case study because there's no secret IP there. It's all public knowledge. But if you do get the job, I mean, that's one of the best ways of standing out. If somebody approached me to say, hey, I've been done deep research on your company. This is a feature that I think you can build. Even if I know something that person doesn't, to know that feature is probably never going to work, I would still far rather like bring that person in for an interview. And if I need to hire an intern or an associate PM, that would probably be the person because they've gone over and above for all other everybody else in that space. So that's all. Take that to the same competitor and look at one of the other competitors that you did the assessment of. You probably have 60 to 80% of the information already. Add that last little bit and send it to them as well. Or send them, hey, I did this a research on a feature of what a competitor would need to look for. This is what it is. Can I do the same for you? Let's see what this data looks like. Like, will you hire me? Don't make you go work for a competitor. It's like that is a great way of applying that practical application to actually getting you a job and helping you stand out as a job as well.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Roger, I think I can also share what works for me. What works for me is to like write about startups, write about products. So I had a newsletter. I have a newsletter. Where I currently work, I got a job actually I got the job because I've been a fan of the company for a long time, and I just managed that relationship. But also I wrote about the company, and I also did more like they had a couple of bugs on their products, and I think what got me the deal was that I created like a feedback backlog of all the things that were wrong with their product and all the things that could have been right with the product, and I created stories and acceptance criteria and sent it over. And the team was really impressed with what I had done. Although I didn't take the role at the time they first offered, but that sort of just helps. So you can be creative with it, like writing teardowns, writing case studies, as Roger said, or simply looking at things that are wrong with the product, or yeah, something. And sometimes it's great to make it simple because what I think was like a one pager, and it was easy to read and see the value behind it, and just cleared up some uncertainty people have about PMs in terms of communications writing. I showed that I had those skills, so it was just easy to hire.
Okay, thank you. But how can I get access to the newsletter?
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Drop it in the chat, David.
All right, thank
Drop it in the chat. We're all about
thank
chilling it here.
Right, so we have another question from Adra Bibi. He's asking, what does a good requirements analysis entail?
Are you talking about a PRD, or are you talking about, in this instance, to do a bit of a scoping on a particular product? I'm not sure when you type that in.
Adra, do you want to clarify?
No?
Yeah.
I don't think
Good evening.
all right.
Good evening. Not a PRD. I know PRD is a product requirement document. No, like just you want to do a requirement analysis for a product. I don't know if it's the business or something. That's just what they asked me to do, and I really don't know how to like go about it. That's what I'm asking.
So when you're starting to do scoping for a business, as part of the advice I've just given David. Adira, was that it?
Sorry, I lost you again.
Is it so? It's in that advice that I've just given to David when you're wanting to approach a company.
Yes.
Yeah.
To approach a company.
Cool. So the short answer is it can be anything. Like, you're doing free work and like upskilling. So pick something that you can deliver well at, and do that. The one easy place to start that's relatively public information is like who the stakeholders are. So a stakeholder relationship map, some value proposition canvases, maybe a business model canvas of what are the mechanics of what it looks like, and then think about what is the product, what is a product, what I call a product ecosystem map, which is like, how does, like for LinkedIn example, they have all the different stakeholders around the edge, but it's like, what products do each of those stakeholders actually engage with? Because they don't all engage with the same set of products. So looking at what that looks like is a way to do it as well. I've also got in here, I don't know if I can drop in files. I can't drop in files. Anyway, I've got an example of a top-tel product teardown and case study writing. Ija's David's product teardowns and case studies. That sounds like a good place to make the link to the Substack is just above there. So you can use that as an example. What I have done in the past, actually I interviewed at TopTel once many years ago as part of the interview process. And what I did was, where is this? Yeah. So I did a product on Sonos, which is like a speaker system. So I thought about adding user profiles for that. So just what is Sonos? And then research found that the number of devices per household was higher when using multiple speakers connected to a speaker, or multiple users were connected to a speaker, average of 1.34, blah, 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 blah. And then my my bullet points is like, this is a hypothesis statement for the top tile exercise. These values are made up. So those are like, but that's like, I just took a stake in the ground. Like, what can I think about the product that I use, like Sonos that I use at home? What can I think about? It's like, oh, well, we're having problems. Like both my wife and I log in with the same account. Like, why do we do that? That's so silly. And then basically took that as like a hypothesis stance. Like, I believe this would, like, this data has shown that this would be better if this is the case. Then the question is like, well, how might we do that? So what is the hypothesis? What is the like related fact? Unpacking that. Once again, this is a made-up statistic. Like all of the numbers are just examples of the types of data that I would use to make a decision like this. And then looking at user profiles, looking at a bit of competitor analysis. This number I got from they're a listed company, so all their financials are public, so you could see their revenue numbers, their user base, all of that was actually published on I just Googled listed financials for Sonos, and you can actually find all their stuff on Google. And so looking at other technologies that do multiple accounts, once again, this is a made-up statistic. Like all of these numbers are mostly just made up. And then I said, well, what might that look like? Like this is all the places that adding multiple profiles would change. This was a quick roadmap of what it needs to look like. This is how the steps I would go through building it. This is how I would go to market. These are the factors that I'd take into account when looking at global communication. This is the team I would need to deliver it, more or less how long it would take, a little bit of scope of breakdown of what that would look like. I put some times and numbers to that and came up with a profit and loss. The income was based off how much I might be able to increase revenue by 1,000%. That seems a little excessive. I think it should be I could increase revenue by 1.275%. Which basically shows that I could increase it by 14.5 million by spending $62,000. We could generate $14.5 million in revenue for this product if this were rolled out. And then in the appendix, this was my time log of how I broke it down. This was the profit and loss working of where I got that from. I did some mock-ups of screenshots, just like literally taking screenshots off my phone and copying and pasting them into thing, and I added in little bits and pieces of what changes would need to happen on that. And then this was just the design style of where I got the color palette and the designs. This is the actual Sonos branding of how I designed the thing. So it showed that I understood the brand. I understood how to communicate in their language with their tone, voice, that sort of stuff. I did a hypothesis, pulled data that would be relevant to them, worked through the reasoning of how to make it a product decision. Like that's like a full example of that. So I would say this is relatively more advanced. I was pitching for a senior PM role at TopTel. And I got the offer. I turned it down, but I got the offer. So this, I would say, is kind of what you're aiming towards. But there's a lot of versions of this that is this accounting and product. there is profit and loss. There's being able to. The best thing about product is around delivering value. And the way you deliver value is work out what something's going to cost versus how much value it will generate for the company. So that's hardly accounting. That's literally just numbers on a spreadsheet, looking at like number of hours multiplied by a developer rate per hour, which I found publicly as like an average US developer rate. So that's like I wouldn't expect a junior PM to be doing like a profit and loss analysis and that sort of stuff. Like I said, that is generally more advanced, but create a hypothesis. What kind of data would go into making that? Where would you find that data? How would you use that data? Even if the data is all bogus, like it's all made up, it still shows your ability to think through the problem, to analyze, to understand their context and solve problems within that. So that is one way of looking at it. Happy to share this if anyone wants it. Hit me up on Slack.
That's super detailed, bro. That's super detailed. That's where I want to be.
It took me about 6 hours. So it wasn't a ton of like thinking. It was like 2 or 3 nights worth of me churning away at it to do a case study on the side for TopTel. But that role was like, I don't even know what the budget was now, but it was like $100,000 like consulting gig where they kind of get you up like 120 something like, I can't remember the exact numbers now, but it was like it would be shitty hours and it was a whole bunch of compromise. In consulting you'll generally earn, like remote consulting will earn a lot more at a senior level, but yeah, it was a pretty good swing at what that looks like.
So yeah,
Cool.
Adra, maybe does that clear your question?
Yes,
Kind
yes,
of.
yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah. But the short answer is you could just do a stakeholder map and like value proposition canvases and interview a bunch of customers and come up with a couple of feature suggestions. That's probably enough at a lower level. Cool.
So yeah, actually we have only 2 minutes left, and I guess we can wrap up since there are no more questions. Okay, I have a question, Roger. Quick one. You know, how would you apply? First of all, how would you approach pricing, SaaS pricing in the Nigerian market or the African market?
Okay, I run a 2-hour pricing workshop. There is, I'll very quickly, I will show you my template, the template that I use for that, for this workshop. Let me, share, okay. Sorry, allow. Yeah. So this is my, where is my pricing workshop? It's over here. So this is my typical pricing workshop. It all comes down to a foundational pricing, which is based on this book called The Strategy and Tactics of Pricing. And it really comes down to these, this is from the book, but it really, I basically break it down into value creation, price structure, price and value communication, pricing policy, and pricing level. And that kind of ends up with a range of it. So value creation is looking at like, what is the value to customers? The price structure is like, how many price points or how might you charge? So the cost optimization graph is this, a little bit of economic theory. Basically, the lower your price, the higher, the higher the price, the lower the customers. The lower the price, the more customers you're going to get. I'll do a quick, I don't have it yet. It is Thomas T. Nagel. The Strategy and Tactics of Pricing. And basically, if you have a single price point, which is like the red box, the total amount that you can capture of the market is the area under the red box. It's the price multiplied by the number of customers, which is the red area. If you have 2 price points, you're going to be able to capture a larger portion of the customers. And if you have infinite price points, you capture the entire triangle, like Amazon's scalable pricing. So looking at price structure, you start looking at like how would we charge for this? What are the types of things we would charge for? Price and value communication is what does the user get out of it? How do we communicate it? Are there certain things that we bucket together and how we deliver that? Pricing policy is the levers. So it's like, how do we have like a premium package and an enterprise package and a freemium model, and like what does that look like? What is the policy of how we group that value in line with that structure? And the pricing level is what do we actually charge for each of those? So just to show you an example of a workshop that I ran last week for this, it kind of looked like this, of like, what is the value creation? What is the pricing structure of all the different things they could do for a presentation company? The price and value is like, what is the value to the customers if they get this right? And unpacking what that looks like. Pricing policy was like pay for the corporate specific white label version of a portal, or no, it wasn't recorded. These are private clients that pay me a couple $100 an hour to run workshops for them. But a pay and train trainers, like these are all the things they would pay for, and we ended up with a pricing matrix of this is what it would look like, and you pay for training, you pay for certification, and you pay for renewal. So annual thing. So we kind of, this was what the pricing was, and we basically I changed that out into a matrix of level 1, level 2, level 3 of the different types of courses they did. For the very basic courses, these are the pricing. For the better courses where you're doing it for others, basically a service provider. Those are the courses where you teach others to do it. It's going to be like triple that. And when you teach others to teach, then it's like a whole different category. So that was kind of like the output of the workshop that we ran. And this video here, let me copy the link. This is a YouTube. So this is a recording of the core points of the book around pricing, if you're interested. So yeah, that's like pricing is a dark art. It's a long. I can run entire workshops on that. Oh, I do run entire workshops on pricing. So
yes, thank you so much for the video, Roger. I've had a hard time really because every material is referencing a book, and I'm like, I don't
read books. I don't have time for that. I watch videos and listen to podcasts and read even blog post summaries, or I read like people's thoughts on the book. Actually, gives me almost as much information.
Same here.
Anyway, we're running over. It's late. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. I'm here every 2 weeks. Either myself or Andy, who's the handsome version of me. Otherwise, hit me up in the People and Product Slack channel.
Yes. Thank you guys for joining. Please bring somebody along next week. We're getting so much value for free. What other people should tap in?
Cool. Well, it's